You did not get the orientation, the preceptorship, the residency that you were promised. You feel like you're being thrown out there to the wolves and you don't have the skills it takes to make it. I'm talking to the new grads who were done dirty. If you're a nurse who's been a nurse for 5, 10 years and 15 years, 20 years, and you know everything, this challenge ain't for you. This challenge is for the new grad who feels like she's in over her head. Listen. Today's new nurses, y'all got it bad. New grads, I am sorry to tell you what you've already been hearing, but you already know that nursing right now is tough. Nursing is tough for new grads because one, a lot of y'all, came out during the pandemic, right? Critical shortage, critical understaffing, a pandemic that no one had experience with, no one knew how to navigate, the time that you needed to be trained properly, the time that you needed to have that one-on-one learning experience during your orientation or your new grad residency. You did not get that, or it was modified in some way where your nursing education suffered. Right? How can a nurse train you when they are drowning themselves? Like the ideal ratio should be less than the max. I know that sounds like duh, but I'm just saying. And that should be even less for when you're in training. When a nurse is training another nurse, she is to have a assignment where teaching can be facilitated. But if the entire shift your nurse who should be training you is busy with patient care, obviously because you're so short-staffed, she's not going to have the time to break it down and explain to you the things you need to hear because she's overwhelmed. I've worked PACU, I've worked ICU, I'm a float nurse. I go to every single floor except mother, baby, or pediatrics. I don't do peds. I intentionally made my PALS labs because I don't want to be taking care of kids. No, I can't do that. No kids. But as a nurse that has had multiple specialties, as a nurse who's been a nurse for 10 years, I can honestly say that y'all got a rough deal. These new grad nurses that came out around the pandemic and after, I'm sorry. That's all I have to say. Y'all are being done so dirty and it's not fair. So that's why I have 10 tips for the new grad nurse. Because, babe, and I'm calling you babe because you're a baby nurse. Listen to me. Gonna get worse. And you did not go through nursing school to leave nursing within a year or 2 years. Whatever your exit plan is, some nurses want to be nurses for forever. Some nurses are doing nursing because it's an exit strategy, it's a means to an end. Whatever the case may be, whatever your personal why is, while you're a nurse, you want to be a good nurse. You want to take care of people's family members to the best of your ability because one day it could be you or your family members. And why not be the best nurse that you can be regardless of the circumstances that you've come into? So here are 10 tips in becoming a strong new grad. All right? Number 1, create your avatar. We all have social media. We are in the social media era. We know what social media is. And with every social media platform, you have to create a profile, right? To create your avatar. Now, as I said, you may be a nurse because it's just your passion. You want to help people. Great. You may be a nurse because in 10 years you want to do this. Or this may be your second career. I've met plenty of second, third career nurses, okay? Regardless of what stage in life that you are, you're here for a different reason, but you need to create your avatar. And I'm hoping that a major part of your avatar is that you care about people and you want to help them. Regardless of the time that you're there to help them for in your nursing career, you want to help people. Think of the type of nurse you aspire to be. Know why you're doing this, okay? The foundation, that had to be number one, because to be honest, if you don't want to be a good nurse, if you don't care about people, if you don't want to help people, if you don't want to be there to be a blessing to someone, please leave. Please. I hate working with nurses like that. If you don't care about patients, don't be there. Seriously, like, figure it out some other way. I don't know. You shouldn't be a nurse if you don't care about people. And unfortunately, there's plenty of nurses who don't, and it could be one, because it was just never their passion to take care of people, or two, they're so burnt out. The nursing burnout is real. And you know, people, when they talk about burnt out nurses, they keep talking about it in a way like, oh, they're leaving the profession. Imagine the ones that are staying. You ever thought about that? The nurses who are burnt out and who are staying. Do you know how horrible it is to work with nurses like that? Whew. And you grads, y'all catch it all the time. Why? Because they see y'all as easy pickings, easy targets, and they be coming at y'all sideways. Okay? So you don't want to be that nurse. So just ensure that you're in nursing for the reason that you care about people and you want to help. All right, and you think about that, and you're like, okay, regardless if I'm going to be a nurse for 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be, I want to be a good nurse. I want to take care of patients. And you need to build that avatar, and you need to know why you're doing this. So I want to be a nurse because I want to be the best ICU nurse, or I want to be the best post-op nurse, or I want to take care of people who are going through certain treatments because I had a family member that was affected by it, or whatever the case may be. Taking care of people, number one, and two, being passionate about doing that well, like being a nurse, being a good nurse, being a good quality nurse. Like if your family member or yourself was ever in the hospital, you would not mind, or you would actually want a nurse like you. Make that be your driving force, all right? So build your avatar, build the character of who you want to be as a nurse. In nursing, they say that when you come in, like when you start your shift, when you clock in, you're supposed to clock out of your everyday life and clock in as a nurse, that nothing else outside of, you know, your assignment or your patient care matters. And even though there is some legitimacy to that, it's not completely true, right? You can't just stop being a mom if you're a mom. You can't stop being a wife. You can't stop being whoever you are, right? But you are to be focused when you're at work. You have to completely focus on being a nurse and sometimes leave who you are, parts of who you are, to the side. Like, you know, you may be taking care of someone who's of a different lifestyle than your own. You might be taking care of someone who have very strong beliefs that is actually quite opposite of your own personal beliefs. You might have patients who have severe addictions that have done horrible things through that addiction, and now you're tasked to take care of them. Sometimes, depending on the hospital that you're at, you may be taking care of prisoners, you know? And regardless of that patient's background, you're going to have to still give them the same quality of care that you would your grandmother or you would your child. You would just have to do that. That is the expectation. And anything less than that is substandard care, subpar. So you really have to focus on that avatar and figure out what kind of nurse you want to be. And if whatever that avatar is, if it does not largely consist of caring for people and wanting the best outcomes for everyone, then you shouldn't be a nurse. And that's why that's number one, okay? Okay. Number two, do your best to go where you know you eventually want to be. Everyone talks about the same advice all the time because, to be honest, that same advice is being given and we won't ignore it, okay? Most nurses are told, start a med surg, and that will give you experience in a little bit of everything so that you can figure out where you want to be. You know, you'll have a taste of renal, you have a taste of cardiac, you'll have exposure to hospice, you'll have exposure to psych, all of that. So go to med-surg and start there. Now, everyone says that's bad advice. And yes and no. Yes, it's bad advice if you already know where you want to be. But if you were like me and did not know what they wanted to do in nursing school, when I went through nursing school, my only goal was to finish nursing school, okay? Nursing school is how I realized that I am strong. That if I really put my mind to something, I can accomplish it. Because nursing school, I'm telling you, my only goal was to just finish, was to get it done. Because I had so many obstacles, I had so many battles, just specifically during the years of nursing school that you would think they were sent to destroy me, okay? So for me, I did not know what I wanted to do when I was in nursing school. All I knew is that I wanted RN behind my name. And throughout my rotations, I was present in every one, yes. But none of them ignited a fire in me where I'm like, yeah, I know I want to be a pediatric ICU nurse. Or I know I want to be an OR nurse. Or I know I want to be an ICU nurse. No, the only thing I knew is that I wanted to graduate. All right, so yes, it is good advice for someone who has not decided on what they want to do. You're absolutely right. The best advice for someone who has not decided on what they want to do is go to ICU. Yeah, because with ICU, you can literally go anywhere. Now with med-surg, you can too. To be honest, with any specialty, you can go anywhere you choose to go after a while. But with ICU, a lot of times if you choose something else, it's either going to be parallel to critical care, like if you're in ICU and you choose to go to cath lab, or if you're in ICU and you decide to go to IR, it might be, or ER, it might be parallel as in it's critical care. So all you have to do is change your thinking and change your process of doing something. But if you don't know what you want to do, go to ICU, so that one, or if you choose something else that's outside of critical care, then you're going down a level of care, which means that you are already qualified to be on that floor. You just have to change your mode of thinking and the priorities of your care. I know that made sense. So good advice is to go to med-surg. The best advice is to go to ICU if you are a nurse that don't know where she wants to go. But for the nurse that knows where she wants to go, apply there. Apply there only. Because this is the dilemma that you're going to end up in, you grad. Either you're going to, one, get a job, get a position in a specialty that you want to be. So if they pay really well, great. That's an added bonus. But if they don't pay really well, you really want to be there anyways. So go into work, you won't have resentment in your heart. Because ain't nothing like working in a specialty that you didn't want to work in the first place, and you're not getting paid. You're just going to be such a sucky nurse. And I know this because I've worked with so many of them. They did not want to be there. Then the hospital isn't paying them what they want to get paid. And ultimately, they take that out in the quality of care that they give. So if you're a new grad, just go where you want to go. Now, we live in the real world, and we're going to have real world conversations here. So say that where you want to go, you did not get in. So say that you want to be a pediatric ICU nurse, and you applied to all the pediatric ICUs, and you did not get in. And you have a med-surg job offering you a position, or you have a other specialty offering you a position, and you need to start working, take the job. You gotta survive, babe. So take the job. But constantly be applying somewhere else. And be honest, I know that's not the advice you want to hear if you're someone that didn't get into where you want to go, but actively work on getting to where you want to go. I've heard the advice that if something is not working for you, then it's working on you. So even if you're on a floor that you don't want to be at, even though you're on the floor that you have no passion in, still show up and do a good job and do your best, because skills as a nurse is so transferable. For instance, if you know how to do an assessment, if you are on med-surg and you don't want to be on med-surg, you want to do pediatric ICU, learning how to do an assessment in med-surg is going to be transferable to learning how to do a assessment on a newborn baby. Because then you're going to know, okay, well, this is what it is in an adult, this is what it is in a child. Paying attention to detail, creating the habit of looking at your labs, looking at your notes, showing up on time, being a team player. There's so many skills that you learn in specialties that you don't want to be in that's transferable to the specialty that you do want to be in. So even if you end up going somewhere you don't want to be, still actively try to go, like still applying to jobs that you want to go. Somebody gonna buy, and be willing to move as well. You know what I mean? Be willing to drive sometimes. You know, a lot of times we have to go out of our comfort zones to get to where we want to go. So do what you have to, but also if you do take a job where you don't want to be the best. A lot of the skills that you're going to develop, organization, passing meds, social skills, teamwork skills, learning how to deal with management, seeing that there is a lot of politics in nursing, and you're going to have to learn those skills. So all these skills that you're learning in the job you don't want to be at will be transferable to the job that you do want to be at. And then so you're walking in with some tools in your basket, in your shed, in your work bag. I don't know, but you get what I'm saying. The skills are transferable. All right, number 3, show up on time or else. For real. Listen to me. If you are a new grad and you know you are already struggling, you need to, you didn't get the training you were supposed to. During your preceptorship, your preceptor was unable to teach you and give you what you need. You're going to need all the help you can get, all right? And showing up on time is really going to help you. Baby nurse, it's going to help you. Why? Because you're going to see the assignment. Funny enough, there was one particular hospital. There were a few hospitals, but there was one particular hospital that I did assignment at. And I'm telling you, at 7:30, they're still making the assignment. Night shift pissed because they want to go home. Day shift here, just waiting around looking like, okay, where's my assignment? But for the most part, a lot of times when you show up to work, the assignment is already made, right? When I charge, I do the assignment by like 6. It just depends on how quickly I get the list of whoever is coming, or when I look at the staffing for the next shift. But I tend to have mine done by 6:30. But show up about 15 minutes early. Look at the assignment. Go ahead, find your computer. Stock your computer. If the computer or your WOW is being used by another nurse, go ahead. I don't know what the policy at your facility is. Some places don't want you using a sticker to put your name on it. So I usually just write my name and then put it on the computer. I'll find the nurse who has the computer on the previous shift. So I work days. So well, now I'm on nights, but I usually work days. But whichever shift you're on, say that you're on a day shift, I will find a night shift nurse and like, hey, this is your computer. Hey, I'm taking this computer over. Do you mind if I stock it if she's not using it at the time? Or even if she is using it, I'm like, do you mind if I stock it? I'll just walk around her, start putting my flushes. That's if she's okay with it. If not, just wait. You can wait. I would just go ahead and grab a little baggie and grab all my stuff and just get my cart ready. But find a computer at a nurse's station. Start going into your charts. Start looking, okay, look at and I can give you a detailed video on how to, look up your patients, but go ahead and look up your patients, know what's going on with your patients, have an understanding so that by the time you're getting report from the nurse, you are, are aware of, pretty much what's going on with the patient. You're able to look at their vital signs. You're able to just do a lot of things so that report could be a lot smoother, and you will have a lot less questions for the nurse. Because nurses, here's another thing too. You cannot control the quality of report that nurse gives you. Some nurses are great at report. Others, not so much. And depending on the shift that they've had, and depending on what day in a row that is, I'm just telling you the truth. Nursing school makes it seem like you're going to get perfect report every time. And babe, you're not. You're going to get some report. You're like, I didn't need to waste my time doing report because you told me nothing. You told me nothing about the patient. Or they gave you report, and the report they gave you and the patient that you were assessing right now doesn't even correlate, okay? So it's best to go ahead and look up your patients and get ready so that your reports can be a lot smoother and take a lot less time, all right? And if you are the nurse, let's be clear. Let me say this again. Let me lean in because it's that important. If you are the nurse that shows up late for whatever reason, you can't be asking a bunch of questions during report. You were late. I'm going to give you a report. And trust me, I'm one of those nurses that take pride into my report. But you're not going to be wasting my time asking me a bunch of questions when you were late. No. I want to leave on time. I did my 12 hours. I'm going to give you a report, or some facilities allow you to write down your report. Okay, but if you are a nurse that's late, there's this one particular nurse that keeps popping up in my head. And this is why this is like so... Can you tell that we've hit a nerve here? There is one particular nurse that is always late. It's not like... No. This nurse is... When I see her name on the board, I know she's going to be late, which is cool. I mean, not cool, but it's expected. But then she has the audacity to be asking 50 million questions when she's always late. Because you see, most nurses who show up late and know they be late, they be the coolest nurses to give report to. They're like, oh yeah, just tell me about the patient. Oh yeah, okay, anything I need to know? Okay, all right, bye girl. Like the ones who be late and know they always late, if they understand the boat that they're in, they act accordingly, okay? And the nurses who are always late tend to be cool about not like drilling you about report. But you, specifically, if you show up late, the expectation is that you're going to take the report that you got. Don't be asking a bunch of questions when you was late, because you're not about to make me late leaving because you was late. Because by 7:15, if you're not there, I'm writing your report. I'm giving it to the charge nurse, and I'm gone because I'm back tonight and I got a baby. Okay, number three of the tips you should know, because as I said, nursing is getting worse. And baby nurse, babe, you are on your own. Let me sit back. You are on your own. Okay, and these are some tips you need to survive, because you're not going to let nothing run you away from your destiny. You worked hard to be here, and you're going to find the tips and skills you need to survive in nursing. And that's why I'm here, okay? Know who to contact. This is so important. Now, ideally, you should have learned this process while you were in orientation, but we know the whole reason why we're here, right? So, know who to contact, find out how to reach the on-call. You gotta know how to reach the on-call person, okay? That's something you do when you first show up. So a lot of times I will look up so in some facilities they send like the list for the day, where it's like who's the hospitalist covering what floors, or who's intensivist in the ICU that day. And they should also have a known place where you can go to see what the on-call schedule is. So if there's cardiology consulted for your patient, and the nurse saying that, hey, rider shift changed, the patient started XYZ, I notified the hospitalist and they said reach out to the cardiologist. I haven't had a chance to do that. Can you reach out to a cardiologist? Or, hey, the patient, when we got him up to Wayne, started complaining of chest pain, and this is new notify the hospitalist, but you gotta call the cardiologist. Whatever the reason, or echo called with the results of the echo, and you need to call the cardiologist because they said this. Whatever the case may be, and let me not even get off on a tangent with that, because to be honest, if echo is calling you with a result for a echo, then they need to call the doctor directly. But a lot of times, depending on the facility, there's different policies and procedures, and you've just, when in Rome, do what they do. But you've got to know where that is. So on each unit, each facility that you go to, you have to know who is on call. You got to know the nephrologist on call. You got to know who the pulmonologist who is on call. Does your hospital have a rapid team? A lot of times when they give you the schedule for the day, when they give you the assignments, some floors, which are the really good ones, they'll have the numbers for like the rapid nurse on it, or they'll have the number for the hospitalist for that day, whatever the case may be. But if your assignment does not have that, if your assignment sheet does not have that, then you should know where to find that. Some facilities, it's online on their intranet. You find out where that is. Some facilities, you go to the secretary and the list is there, and you want to know how to access that list without the secretary, because there's some days that staffing are going to be so bad that you don't have a secretary, or the secretary may be at lunch, or she stepped away, and you don't want that to delay the reason why you did not reach out to a doctor. Always know where your on-call list is for your shift, and that would really help you in navigating a shift where you may need to call the doctor for something, the consulted doctor for something. Number 5, okay, this one might go over well for some, and for others it won't. All right, but enforce bedside report. Yes, enforce bedside reporting. A lot of times, I'm gonna be real, a lot of times the nurses who don't want to do bedside report is because they don't want to give report in front of the patient. And there are some times when, that's appropriate, but it's not most of the times. A lot of times if I'm going to give report and I know there's something in the report that may be a source of contention or issue, I might save it for after we walk out the room and like, hey, I wanted to say this, but I didn't want it to be an issue in front of the patient. Or I say it to you before we get into the patient's room, like, hey, I'm about to give you a bedside report, but I just want you to know something that happened last night. Or I want you to know that, whenever this topic is brought up, or, if there's a family issue, whatever the case, whatever I feel like is sensitive and just need to be said, I'll either say it before or after the report, but I pretty much like to give bedside report. And I found in my career that a lot of times nurses who are adamant about not giving bedside report, you're going to find out that it's going to be to your detriment. All right, I like getting bedside report because as you're giving me report, I'm scanning the room, There's another specific time to do that, but as you gain experience, you're just gonna be able to do several things simultaneously. If you're telling me the patient's on fluids, I'm looking at the fluids, right? I'm looking at the bag, I'm looking to see how much is in the bag. Because a lot of times those nurses who want to give you a report outside is gonna leave you a dry bag. She's going to leave your tube feeds dry, empty, only 10 cc's left in it. The patient's room is going to be a hot, complete mess. Trash is going to be overflowing. Laundry bag is going to be filthy. Patient's going to be lopsided in the bed. I mean, plenty of times, most of the times, when I have nurses who are just so adamant on not giving me bedside report on any of the patients for any reason and every reason, I'm telling you, they're the ones that's going to do you dirty. Because if your bag is running dry, you're going to want to be like, hey, do you mind grabbing me another bag before you go? Or another thing why you should be doing bedside reports so that you can check those lines. Listen to me and listen to me clearly. If you take a heparin drip patient or you take a patient that's on a titratable drug, even if that nurse left, once you take report, you're taking responsibility for everything that's going on. And the expectation is that you are supposed to check the pump, check the fluid, check the rate, check everything. You know, once they're gone, if later on someone says, hey, I found the bag running, you know, I found this heparin drip running at this rate, or I found your fentanyl running at this rate, and then the computer says this rate, you can't say, hey, well, no, that was a night shift nurse that did that. Yeah, but you assumed care of that patient. Because you're supposed to do bedside report. You're supposed to sign off certain drips. Or if you don't have to sign off the drip, you're supposed to check the lines of the drip or of the fluid saying that it is going at the right rate as what the order said. You know what I mean? There's times that, you know, I get report that, hey, it should be going at 100 and it's really going at 250. They had dropped the rate 4 hours ago and the nurse never saw it. And you assumed report. You assume care. There are times that it's going to say that the heparin drip should be going at 15 and old girl got the heparin drip going at 22. I'm telling you, I'm not making this stuff up. There's plenty of times that the insulin drips is saying that it should be going at 2 units per kg per hour, and you should have dextrose going at 250. You should have D5 going at 250, but the fluid is still normal saline. I'm just saying, and now, you know, the patient's not waking up. I'm just saying, when you take report on a patient, you're assuming care, and you're saying that whatever the state that the patient that you received in is, you were in agreement with it because you should have done bedside report. You know what I mean? So I'm just telling you, it helps you to set your day up for success. Or even if it's a nurse that I know is going to be a tussle for her to want to go and grab me a new bag, I can then, depending on the bag, she has to go get it. Because if it's like a heparin bag and you're leaving me a heparin bag dry, you have to grab another one. I'm not even signing off with you, go, let's start another bag. You know what I mean? Or if it's like a antihypertensive, like a Cardine drip, or, you know what I mean, if I'm signing off propofol with you, or I'm signing off something, and I can't manage to run out on my shift while I'm giving report, you know, or I'm getting report. No, you want, oh, let's sign off the propofol drip. Ma'am, there's only 5 cc's in there. Let's grab a new one, or I'll just like, oh, I'm gonna grab a new one because that one's dry. And we can sign off with it, because certain medications, you have to get a 2-person sign off anyways, okay? So please, bedside report is for your good. It does not harm you to do that, okay? You want to advocate for yourself, do bedside report. Encourage bedside report. Be like, if a nurse says, oh, this is what's going on with this patient, so I don't want to give bedside report. Okay, tell me about that situation now outside, and then we can get report. We can give you report on the inside. Advocate for yourself. You want to do bedside report, okay? A lot of times bedside report, the patient's like, I've been asking for pain medicine all day and I'm still in pain. And then I'll say to the patient, and I'll ask the nurse, hey, does the patient have pain meds due? Oh yeah, he is dilaudid, ordered Q4. Okay, when was the last time the patient got it? Oh, I gave it to them at 10. Ma'am, it's 7 o'clock. The patient said that they've been asking for pain meds the entire time. Is there a reason why it hasn't been given? No blood pressure issues? Patient's alert? You know what I mean? Just, I'm telling you, because now think about it. At the beginning of your shift, as you're getting, you know, settled into your shift, the patient is calling, asking for pain meds when they could have been got pain meds. You know what I mean? Like, bedside report is to your, it's for your interest, it's for your good, it's for your good, it's for the good of the patient. And remember with number 1, what I said about building your avatar. If you're not there to take care of people, then why are you there? You know what I mean? You're not trying to be difficult with the nurse. No, at the end of the day, it's about patient care. You know, if the patient has pain meds, do give them their pain meds. Especially if their vital signs is appropriate, you know, especially if they're presenting properly, they're not half asleep, you can't wake them up drowsy, or whatever the case. It doesn't have to be pain meds, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Bedside report for you, new grad. Do it, okay? Number 7, plan ahead, right? I say this all the time because we know that nursing, it's short-staffed. We say it, we know it, it's life. We're always short-staffed. So if I want a nurse to help me, or even my tech, if I know I need help with, example, I had a patient that was a large patient. I needed help turning. And with this patient, I needed about 3 people in there. And this patient was vented, right? But insert whatever situation. That patient, I know I needed help turning that patient. Not only that, I knew that patient, they couldn't lay flat for too long because then I would start having blood pressure issues with them, right? What I did, I knew I would have to pull a substantial amount of people on the floor to help. The first thing I did was I planned ahead in my shift. I'm like, listen, I don't know what's going to happen, but hey, around 4:30-ish, do you mind helping me turn my patient? Okay, cool, no problem. All right, cool. So I've already said that to 2, 3 nurses, right? Then I'm bathing the patient, right? I give baths on my shifts, especially if I'm in the ICU. I tend to bathe my patients on day shifts, regardless, unless very rarely I don't give my patient a bath or at least a wipe down. So what I would do is that I would clean the top of the patient first. I will go ahead, do whatever it is I would have to do. If I know that I have to change, I'm changing the sheets while I'm doing that, I go ahead and I bring everything into the room, right? I'm halfway, pulled off the sheets off the bottom, have that halfway, already have my chucks, everything rolled up. I've wiped the top of the patient. I've done everything that I can do by myself so that literally when others come in to help me, it's something quick. So I've already pulled off half the sheet, put on half the clean sheets there. I've wiped the top. I know that we're going to turn this patient, we're going to have to wipe the butt, and we're going to have to change the Mepilex at the back. I go ahead, I have the Mepilex there, I date and time the Mepilex. I have it ready. I have the wipes pulled out already. I have everything sorted out. So as soon as these individuals walk into my room, all I have to do is lay the bed flat, have them turn the patient, pull whatever we have to pull through, wipe them down quickly, whatever the case it may be, whatever it is that you need help with your patient. Plan ahead so that when you're pulling that nurse away from patient care to help you with your patient, you don't have them trapped in your room for a long time, okay? Because if you're that nurse that's doing that, you're going to see that nurses are not going to want to help you because they're like, look, every time I go help her with her patient, I'm in her patient's room for 15-20 minutes and I got stuff to do. Okay, so you need to plan ahead. Make it easy to help you. Make when folks see you, they don't mind helping you, right? No one wants to be trapped in someone else's patient's room for a long time. I do my very best. I even like when I'm having something signed off. I go ahead and get the pump ready. I go ahead and draw up the medication, whatever it is. So all they have to do is quickly do this, check to see if it's the right dosage, right medication. If it's something I know that they have to look at the pump to sign off, I just go ahead and make it so simple that they're not taking up a lot of time in my room because I know they have patients of their own. And this includes your techs, okay? Number 7, anticipate patients' needs. Oh my gosh. So one of the things that I've noticed, especially when I'm charging, is that a lot of times I'm manning the front desk and I'm the one answering the call lights. And plenty of times when a patient call and I answer and I call the nurse and I'm like, hey, your patient is calling for this, this, or this, the number one response I get is, man, I was just in that patient's room. And the thing is that nurses, I sound like a broken record, but it's because it's the truth, right? We're busy, we're understaffed, we have way too many patients. So we need to make each encounter and each visit effective. And the way we do that is by anticipating the patient's needs. So if I'm going into a patient's room, right, and I know this patient asked for their pain meds on the clock every time, right? I'll probably time the time I go in their room around the time their pain meds are due, because I know they're going to ask for that. If I know that it's a patient that always asks for food and they are allowed to get the food, and they are allowed to get the food, because I see some nurses saying that, oh, I don't care if my patient's diabetic and their blood sugar is high. If they're asking for snacks, they're alert and oriented, they know their blood sugar is high, I'm just going to give it to them. I'm not talking those nurses, because actually you're going against doctor's orders, but that's a conversation for another time, because folks are like, oh, it's just food. They know, da da da, but you know, the just food, the juice you're giving them, the snacks you're giving them, that's also a medication treatment, right? Because if the patient was hypoglycemic and you gave them juice, or you gave them peanut butter with crackers or something to bring their blood sugar up, you can document that, hey, I gave this food to treat their blood sugar because the patient was alert and oriented and was able to eat or drink something, and then you still got to recheck the blood sugar, right? So if it's a medication for a hypoglycemic patient, it's a medication for a hyperglycemic patient that's non-compliant, okay? But I know I got off on a tangent, but it's that important. But anticipate your patient's needs. If I know a patient's always asking for food and they can get it, I'm gonna go ahead and just bring it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll have extra graham crackers on my cart. I'll have extra peanut butter. If I know that you're always asking for water and you're not on a fluid restriction, and I know that it's safe to give it to you, I'm just gonna go ahead and bring in an extra cup of water with ice. You know what I mean? Whatever the case may be. If I know you're a patient that's always asking for rags and toiletries or whatever the case may be, I'm gonna make sure that I have it. Whatever it is, apply it to your patient. Whatever needs you think that the patient may have. If you know that the patient has urinary urgency, right? And you're like, hey, while I'm in here, do you want to use the bathroom? You know, the patient may say, yeah, I'd like to go ahead and use the bathroom while you're in here, or no, I don't want to use the bathroom. Then with that patient, I would say, well, you know, after I leave you, I'm going to be going to another patient, and I might not be as available to come quickly when you hit the call light. So I just want you to factor that in. So you sure you don't want to use the bathroom while I'm here? Because I don't want to come too late when you call and I'm in another patient's room and you mess yourself up. So sometimes, you know, you can use those little tips to help encourage your patient to use the bathroom, but anticipate the patient's needs. You know what I mean? See what the patient may need, and that may limit, you know, limit an extra trip. Like if I'm in a patient's room and I know that this patient usually asks for something, they usually want something, you know, I just go ahead and just think, what will this patient call me for? And go ahead and anticipate that. And if not, just ask them, hey, I'm about to step out your room. I'm about to go see another patient. Is there anything I can do for you before I go? Do you need your water refilled? Do you need to be repositioned? Do you want to sit the bed up? Do you want to get in the bed now? Just anticipate their needs so that when you step out of the room, you're not having to immediately turn back around and go back in the room. You know, I know plenty of times we do ask the patient that and then they still call, and sometimes there's nothing you can do about that, but you can significantly decrease the frequency of that by anticipating your patient's needs. Okay? Okay. All right, stick with me. Don't get lost. Don't get overwhelmed. You know these tips are good. You know that these things, if you improve on them, it can really make nursing a bit more controllable, tolerable. You know, you can think about if these things were better so far in your nursing career, you know that you would be doing a lot better. Your shifts won't be as rough. All right. Number eight. Know who to contact. I feel like I already talked about this. We already talked about this, but it's worth talking about again. So just again, ensure that you know who to contact. Find out how to reach the on-call. Find out who your hospitalist is. Find out who the provider is. Some facilities, if they have an NP there, they want you to hit the NP first and then call the doctor. Some places it's just a doctor you reach out to. Whatever the case may be, you need to know who to contact for your patient if there's an emergency, if there's a change in status, if there's so many things, right? You need to know who to contact. So, and you should know this if you showed up on time, but just know who to contact. Always know who to contact in case anything happens with your patient. That one was short and sweet, but if it's short and sweet, it's short and sweet. Number 9, pay attention to family and friends. It is so important. A lot of times, it's the family and friends that's going to be your issue and not the patient, okay? That's the negative way of looking at it. And the positive way is that sometimes it's the family and friends that are really going to see the great care that you're given and recognize you, even when the patient won't or can't, okay? In the ICU, sometimes your patients are intubated. Sometimes your patient is unresponsive. Sometimes your patient is unable, whatever issues that they have going on medically. Sometimes they have behavioral issues. Sometimes that patient is passing, and family and friends are the ones who are seeing the great care that you're giving. And sometimes family and friends can be the reason why that case is particularly difficult. Okay, so especially if there's a wife or a spouse at the bedside, a parent at the bedside, obviously I've verified that I can share medical information with them. I speak to them about the plan of care. I speak about, hey, I read the doctor's notes. This is what the doctor is saying. This is the plan. They're saying if, they're going to they're going to put in the echo, and depending on what the echo says, then they'll go ahead from there. Hey, I just want you to know that they're drawing these labs because this lab is able to let us know what's going on with the patient, and depending on the results of those labs, XYZ, XYZ. I don't know where I stopped on that, but what I was saying is that sometimes it's the friends and the family who see the good work that you're doing. And a lot of times, if you're able to share with them the reason why you're doing something, why you're taking labs, the reason for the lab, what the results of the lab may mean, what the result of the lab may indicate in their care, will it change anything, or will the plan of care continue the route that we're going? Whatever the case may be, if you are allowed to involve friends and family, whoever is there that is allowed to be a part of the patient care, go ahead and do that, because that's going to limit the amount of time that you spend answering questions, and it can really help mitigate and avoid a lot of customer service issues that may come up. And I say that to say this, because specifically in my career, I've had great customer service skills where I was able to explain situations to the family member of the patient, that even when I made an error, hear me out, I made the error. This was my very first nursing error, mistake. Every nurse makes a mistake, make mistakes in their career. May it be a medication error, may it be whatever the case may be. In my case, it was a medication error. And I remember, even though I made an error, the family member rejected the fact that I made an error. They completely disregarded the fact that I made an error, even though the doctor, because back then, we walked in, the doctor, the charge nurse, at the facility I was at, and they this nurse made an error. She gave you this much medication when you should have gotten this. And thank God it didn't adversely affect the patient. It could have, but it didn't, thank God. But the patient and the family member cussed at the doctor and said, no, I didn't make an error. He made the error by writing the wrong medication, because the medication that I gave was what the patient needed. And it was, looking back on it, it's really funny, because I'm like, no, I really did make a mistake. But because I had been treating the family and the patient so well, because my customer service skills was so good, that when that situation happened, their minds could not wrap around the fact that I made an error. And that would be a great story for a story time, and maybe one day I'll share the details of it, which I can, because it's 10 years ago. It happened 10 years ago. But what I'm saying is that if you are really kind to the patient and the family members and friends, you're going to realize that the entire experience of taking care of that patient is a lot easier. So if there's a family member in the room, ask them, not only other things, like if they're spending the night, ask them if they need a pillow, ask them if they need a blanket, ask them if they need a chair. Does your hospital allow recliners in the room? What about your hospital? Do they offer cots for family members who are spending the night? Even if they're not spending the night, if you have family members in the room standing, can you find them a chair? Can you, sometimes I offer family members, like, do you want something to drink, or whatever the case may be. The only thing you can't do for family members is, one, take their vital signs. New grads do not take family or friends' vital signs, right? And the reason why you can't do that is because you're obligated to treat whatever it is. So if they're saying, oh, my blood sugar is feeling low, can you please check my blood sugar? I'm sorry, ma'am, I cannot do that, but you can go to the ER downstairs and check in. They will be able to check your blood sugar there. If they ask you to take their blood pressure, because remember, whatever it is, you are now responsible to take care of that. And that is not your patient. That is not the hospital's patient. The hospital did not accept care of that patient. And if you take their blood pressure and it's really high, you can't just be like, oh, your blood pressure is high, go home and take your meds, or take your meds now. You can't be giving medical advice to that person. They're not your patient. There's nothing covering you. And you can't just leave it as is, because now it's negligent, because you are operating in your role as a nurse. And you are aware that someone's blood pressure is high. You know what I mean? It's so sticky. There's so many ways that could play out, and you want no involvement. So if a family member asks you to do anything medically for them, ask you medical advice, if they ask you anything about themselves, anything that does not pertain to the patient, do not do that. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Right.
And number 10. Okay, we're here. Number 10. I don't know where this went in nursing, but wherever she went, we need to bring her back. We need to bring her back. Teamwork, teamwork, teamwork. Teamwork is so important in nursing. No, there's no such thing as that's not my patient. All right, if you're walking past a room and you hear a pump beeping, go in the room. If the bag is dry and it has more on it, add some more to it. You know what I mean? Or if it's dry and you got to go grab another one, hit pause on the pump, hit delay, not even pause, because 2 minutes it starts beeping again. That's the Alaris pumps. But whatever the case may be, delay it 15 minutes. Even if it's long enough for you to go tell the nurse, hey, I went into your room, I got to go see my patient, but your bag is dry. I delayed it for 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Hey, I see that you have heparin going. Your bag is about to run dry, so I held it. You need to go grab another heparin. You know what I mean? Hey, I see that you are giving blood. The blood is running dry, so I went ahead and opened up the fluids. You need to go see your patient. If it's something simple where I can go grab the fluids, like if your patient's just getting some normal saline, or if I see that you already have the extra bag in there, I'll go ahead and spike it. Or if you don't feel comfortable doing any of those things, at least place it on hold so it's not beeping and irritating the patient. You know what I mean? And go tell the nurse. If you can help them, help them. You know what I mean? If you can, just do it. You know what I mean? If you see a call light going off, if you're walking past the room and you see the light, you know what I mean? Go in there, pop your head in. Hey, I need help to the bathroom. Okay, if the patient needs help to the bathroom, if the patient's walkie-talkie, go ahead and help them if you have the time. You know what I mean? Because you don't want the patient getting up and falling, and then, you know what I mean? It's everyone's patient. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. I keep saying that because it's like, gosh, things could be a lot easier if teamwork was important to every single nurse. You know what I mean? If I know that you have a patient that's a CWAP protocol, I know this patient is going through DTs, and I have a patient whose room is next door to that patient, I'm just gonna, keep an eye on your patient too. I'm gonna be listening if I hear anything strange. You know what I mean? I'm gonna pop my head in too, especially if I know that you have another needy patient, or you have another issue that you are busy, or if you have a patient's room that's all the way at the end of the hall. Sometimes you get an assignment if you're in med surg, or depending anything other than ICU, because ICU, your patient's room should be pretty much close to each other. I've been in some ICUs where they do some crazy stuff like, oh, you got a patient down here and a patient all the way down there. And in times like that, they only do that if the patient's like really stable and they have like transfer orders out. But for ICU, they pretty much put the rooms together. But sometimes in med-surg, you have patients on all 3 or 4 halls, depending on how many halls are on your floor. Sometimes you have patients that's all over the place. So if I know that, okay, there's a nurse and most of her patients are down here and she only has this one patient down here, I'm paying attention to your patient. And you should do the same, because in order for people to help you, you're going to have to help them. You know what I mean? People are more willing to be helpful to you when they see that you're really helpful to them. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you, and a lot of nurses don't like you, especially ICU nurses. They don't like you going into their rooms without their permission. So if I do go in someone's room, I will say, hey, I just want you to know I went into your patient's room because the pump was beeping. Or I went into the patient's room because they had called for a nurse and I was right outside. And if I go into anyone's rooms, even if I'm on med surg, I'm like, hey, I went in your patient's room. They had asked for some water. I saw that they're on a regular diet. I gave them a cup of water. I saw that they didn't have a fluid restriction. I went ahead and gave it to them. I saw that they weren't diabetic and whatever the case, they asked for a Coke. Whatever it is that you do for the nurse's patient, let her know that you did it. So, hey, I put your patient on the bedside commode, or I put your patient on the bedpan. I just want you to know they're on it. They may call. Whatever the case may be, right? Teamwork really helps the entire unit. When every nurse take responsibility for the nurse next to them, to the left and right of them, you're going to realize that the load of the floor is a lot lighter. All right, teamwork is something that we should not ignore. And I know new grads, you're just here trying to survive your own assignment, so you can't imagine helping others. But I'm telling you, if you start doing that, folks are gonna, when they see you working, they're just gonna smile and be like, yes, so-and-so is here today, so I know it's gonna be a good shift. You want to be that person that people think like that about, and you want to help encourage others to be like that. Because you never know, one day you're going to have a really hard assignment that someone really helped prevent your patient from falling and getting harmed. Or someone really was there to help prevent a situation from going bad. Whatever the case may be. But teamwork is very, very needed in nursing. And we need to bring that back. And you grads, if you start exhibiting those traits early in your career, you're just going to be an outstanding nurse. All right? On my channel, we're going to be talking about these things. My channel is specifically geared to new grads. If you're a nurse who's been a nurse for 5, 10 years, and 15 years, 20 years, and you know everything, this channel ain't for you. This channel is for the new grad who feels like she's in over her head. He's in over his head. You feel like you did not get you did not get the orientation, the preceptorship, the residency that you were promised. You feel like you're being thrown out there to the wolves and you don't have the skills it takes to make it. I'm talking to the new grads who were done dirty because the pandemic really changed the landscape of nursing, and it's not necessarily for the best that I've seen so far and that I've heard so far, because I have friends all over the country who are nurses and we're pretty much reporting the same thing. And in my heart, I feel like the new grads really got the blunt end of this, and I want to share the knowledge that I have from being a nurse for coming up on 10 years. And I want to help you. And the nurses I work with who are new grads tell me that they really appreciate the help and support that I give them. They love when I'm their charge nurse, or even when I'm not charging, even when I have patients. They love when I'm working with them because they find me as a resource. And I never thought that could be something that I would enjoy doing, but here I am. And this assignment, I am a travel nurse, so I do have tips for travel nurses too, or if you're thinking of becoming a travel nurse as well. But this is the feedback that I've heard a lot from a lot of people that I've been working with lately, that, hey, you really helped me. You have really broken things down to me in a way where I can understand, or thank you for supporting me. Thank you for explaining that for me. Thank you for helping me with my patient. And I realize that is something that's not being done like that anymore. And I am here to help, and I want to help navigate and help the new grad navigate what it is like to be a nurse that can really go to work and not have anxiety, not have an anxiety attack, not feel overwhelmed, not feel like they want to quit their jobs every single day. You know, I know nurses that are really stressed about their jobs, new grads, and thinking that they made a terrible mistake of becoming a nurse, and it's because of the environment that has been created. And I just want you to know, new grads, that there are people here to help you. I'm here to help you. This channel, these talks are going to be here to help you so that you can navigate and grow into a strong nurse. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if this is the type of content that you have been waiting for. Peace.